Joining me on the program now, Professor of International Relations at the University of Otago, Robert Patman. Robert, kia ora, thank you for your time today.
You're right, Andrew. Pleasure.
Now, whatever we say, we're going to be in trouble on this one. And I know people will accuse us of Trump derangement syndrome and all of those sorts of things. People entitled to their opinion in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Well, at least we thought that used to be the case. Just off air, before we started talking, this is a very disturbing development which has happened in the last 24 hours or so. A member of the U.S. legislature been arrested for asking a question. What details do we know, Robert?
Well, with the accounts we've had in the last 4 hours, Senator Alex Padilla, who is the son of Mexican immigrants, he's a legal U.S. citizen, he's a senator, born in the U.S., asked the Homeland Security, attended a press conference given by the Homeland Security Secretary, and attempted to answer a question, ask her a question at the gathering. Mm-hmm. He was forcibly removed, dragged from the room, although he kept shouting, "I'm trying to ask a question," by officials, and he was handcuffed outside the room and forcibly ejected.
Wow.
And that's caused uproar in Congress, with Gavin Newsom saying that the senator was one of the most decent people he knows and a person of enormous integrity. And Patilla, outside the room where he was ejected from, said he was released after 15 minutes, said that if a US senator is treated this way by the Trump administration, he dreads to think how cooks, farm workers, ordinary people who may be the subject of deportation are being treated. And I think that takes us to what is the context of what's happening.
Yeah.
And that is, and I think it's important to set the scene so that people don't get the wrong end of the stick. I think we're all entitled to our own opinions, but we're not entitled to our own facts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the facts are as follows. Last week, Los Angeles was shocked by the fact, not that the administration was moving against undocumented immigrants. They made it quite plain they were going to do that.
Yep.
But the way they did it caused immediate counter-reaction. They moved immigrations and customs enforcement agency known as ICE. ICE officials swooped on about 118 people, but in doing so, they entered business premises, they entered farms, they entered homes, and took people away in a pretty unceremonious fashion.
Yeah.
Local people who witnessed this, particularly in businesses, a number of business owners immediately complained to the president's office.
Yeah.
Said that people were being physically dragged away, and they were ill-treated in the way they were being detained. That was one thing, but also, and this is what got lawyers in Los Angeles very upset, that some of the ICE officials did not have the judicial warrants they needed. In other words, there was a perception that due process was not being observed.
Yeah.
And that set the scene from a pretty energetic local reaction, which culminated in protests.
Yeah.
Some violence did occur, and there's no excuse for that. But how did Mr. Trump respond to the protests against these detentions? By bringing in 4,000 National Guards and 700 Marines. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, according to the Constitution, this is a federalist system. It is the prerogative of the governor, not the president, to call on the National Guard. And so Gavin Newsom, governor of California, was pretty furious because he argued that this had nothing to do with the detentions or the counter-reaction. It was everything to do with the president circumventing local government and concentrating more power in his own hands. So, it set the scene. This is a really serious situation because Chicago and New York this unrest over the way people are being detained by ICE officials has spread to other cities
Yeah.
and set the scene for what could be a tense weekend in the US with this military parade at the cost of $90 million, which has been organized President Trump, and it's going to coincide with his 79th birthday.
Yeah. This is it's certainly a range of different things, and there's so much that we could touch on here or unpack. But I suppose wanting to talk about the differences between what is federal, the decisions that the legislature and the president get to decide on, and what gets made at a state level. I mean, I understand that the last time that the president called in troops was LBJ, and this was against civil rights protests and the Vietnam War, and only then, well, reluctantly, even then, this is there's very little precedent for the scale of this, and to do so in opposition to the local governor, not in conversation and partnership, certainly sets a dangerous precedent.
Yes, and that's how it's perceived in California. And also, I think California feels it's no coincidence that they've been targeted in this way because, A, they have a large number of immigrants there, and they probably have more than their fair share of undocumented people. I think it's not so much what the president's attempting to do, it's the way he's gone about it. And it's also part of a pattern. You see, this hasn't come out of a clear blue sky. The president has already shown, at least in the eyes of his critics, scant regard for the US Constitution.
Yeah.
And this seems to be another move that confirms that he will not be constrained by constitutional norms. Early in his administration, he questioned something in the Constitution, that a person becomes a citizen by birthright.
Yeah.
But you see, there's been other moves which you use that term slide towards autocracy. Why is this perception growing? It's not just because of this incident in Los Angeles. It's also because the president has threatened judges with impeachment that disagree with his administration's policies. He has sued major media outlets that criticize his administration's performance. He has also withheld federal funds from universities which have courses which he doesn't approve of.
Wow. So
there's a multifaceted drift in the eyes of many Americans. It really came home to me, Andrew. About 2 months ago, we had a visitor from the United States who was a very grounded, middle of the road person.
Yeah.
And we got talking, and I was quite shocked in the course of the conversation to discover the sort of pressure that was coming from the administration on universities. Of course, we now have this standoff between Harvard, but of course, Harvard is got deep pockets. It can take this stand. Many of the universities which are publicly funded depend on federal funds, can't take such a stand. So there is a concern that Mr. Trump is beginning to row back against what many Americans have taken for granted, their freedom to speak out without fear or favor.
Yeah.
And I think this episode, and let's be quite clear for the viewers and the listeners, it's an unfolding situation.
Yes.
And I'm relying on the reports that we're getting about Alex Padilla. But it does, as I say, I think there's a cumulative tension here that each incident seems to be reinforcing a view. And you see, it's reflected in foreign policy. Mr. Trump seems to have a great liking for Mr. Putin, who is a dictator.
Yeah.
And also Xi Jinping. He hasn't got a bad word to say for those gentlemen, but he reserves his venom for the liberal democratic allies of the United States. So it seems, in the eyes at least of his critics, that this is a person who may not be a democratic politician. He's certainly been democratically elected twice, but may have authoritarian aspirations.
And honestly, the comparison there, and you mentioned Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, of course, with the birthday parade, which well, some people would say, oh, it's just a coincidence it's happening on his birthday. But if you think of the types of regimes who have military parades on their leaders' birthdays, again, we're thinking Putin, we're thinking North Korea. In terms of the optics, and I'm not saying that there's any substance to this, but what it looks like to have a military parade for the leader's birthday certainly looks like that slide towards autocracy that we mentioned at the beginning.
Yes, the optics are not good. And I think there is going to be pushback against this. America is a society of rugged individuals.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Gavin Newsom has pushed back quite decisively against Mr. Trump and seen his popularity grow enormously. There might be a lesson there for other liberal democracies who've tiptoed around the Trump administration. Some of us have always argued that you don't deal with a bully by trying to appease them.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to be confrontational. You just have to stand firm where you disagree. And I think that Mr. Trump may find it increasingly difficult, both within America but outside America, to impose his agenda. But we will see. But this weekend could be a bit of a fork in the road moment for America's political system. And I don't think my crystal ball is just as bad or no better than anyone else's. But I think we are reaching a potential tipping point, because Mr. Trump does have a far-reaching agenda, which seems to include the expansion of presidential power.
Yeah. Well, hey, we do appreciate your insights, not necessarily your gift of prophecy in this regard, but your insight and understanding in this area. Robert, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.